The CDC says skin cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer in the country.
It's one of the world's deadliest diseases, and these celebrities are proof that it can happen to anyone, but that it can be beaten.
Basal cell in the world of skin cancers is the least dangerous. Please wear sunscreen.
We often admire celebrities for their beauty, charm, and charisma. Their smiles seem untouchable, their lives perfect. But behind the glitz and glamour lies a different reality, a silent, creeping threat that doesn't care who you are. Skin cancer, one of the deadliest forms of the disease.
It is one of the most preventable types of cancer, but as City News told you earlier this month, melanoma is the most common cancer in Canada.
Has quietly marked some of the most iconic faces in the entertainment world. While the world sees them as symbols of perfection, many of them have faced the terrifying moment of hearing a doctor say, "It's cancer." Some kept it secret, battling in silence. Others chose to speak out, using their platforms to warn others. This is not just a collection of celebrity stories, it's a reminder that illness doesn't discriminate. That a small mole, a strange bump, or a faded scar can carry consequences far more serious than anyone expects. This journey isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because the truth is, many of these stars are still fighting. Some have beaten the disease.
Wolverine actor Hugh Jackman has had another skin cancer scare. The actor revealed that he has undergone 2 biopsies following a new skin cancer scare.
Others continue to check their skin every single day, knowing what's at stake. And a few, sadly, are no longer with us. They left behind not just memories, but lessons, powerful ones. So before we dive into their individual stories, ask yourself, when was the last time you checked your own skin? When was the last time you took a second look at that spot you've been ignoring? This is more than Hollywood, it's personal, and it might just save your life. In 2022, Khloe Kardashian shared a revelation that cut through the noise of Hollywood gossip like a knife. It wasn't a fashion statement or a reality show twist. It was a warning. A small bump appeared on her cheek, one she assumed was nothing more than a breakout.
This, never thought for a second it was a tumor on my face. Like never, never, never.
The Kardashians about learning she had skin cancer on her face.
For 7 long months, she ignored it. No pain, no urgency. But when she finally got it checked, the truth was shocking. It was a tumor that needed immediate removal. This wasn't her first encounter with skin cancer. At just 19 years old, Khloe had a malignant growth removed from her back. Even with that experience behind her, even with years of skin awareness, she missed the signs again. That's the reality of skin cancer. It hides in plain sight. Despite being vigilant with sunscreen and skincare, this second scare reminded Khloe and millions watching that no one is truly safe. She didn't hide her surgery, she spoke out. She posted images, shared her story, and turned her platform into a space of advocacy, not just aesthetics. Today, she urges her followers to check their skin regularly,
Telling fans about her cancer scare and urging them to get checked and frequently.
to stop brushing off symptoms, and to listen when something doesn't feel right. Her message isn't wrapped in filters or edits. It's raw, real, and urgent. Skin cancer doesn't care how famous you are. It doesn't wait for the perfect time. And sometimes it shows up right on your face, daring you to pay attention. Khloe did, and now she's using her voice to make sure you do too. Hugh Jackman is known around the world as Wolverine, the indestructible mutant with claws of steel. But behind that powerful screen persona lies a very human man who has fought a real and relentless enemy: skin cancer. Since his first diagnosis in 2013, Hugh has undergone treatment 6 times.
To Hugh Jackman, it turns out his skin cancer is back. The actor has been treated for skin cancer 6 times.
6 surgeries. 6 reminders that sun damage doesn't just vanish with time. It stays, it waits, and it strikes. Growing up under the blazing Australian sun, Jackman admits he rarely used sunscreen. Back then, sunburns were just part of childhood. But decades later, those careless days turned into a cycle of biopsies, scars, and worry. In 2023, after yet another suspicious spot appeared, he posted a video urging fans to take their skin seriously. No flashy production, no Hollywood filter. Just a man speaking plainly, saying, "Wear sunscreen. Get checked." He wasn't selling anything. He was pleading. His honesty made headlines not for drama, but for courage. He turned each procedure into a teaching moment, showing his bandaged face and explaining what others should look out for. Through it all, he has remained grounded, grateful, and focused on one goal: awareness. Hugh Jackman doesn't see himself as a hero for what he's endured. But make no mistake, his voice has saved lives. And maybe, just maybe, someone watching his story today will get a spot checked that could have turned deadly tomorrow. Because in Hugh's own words, no one is untouchable, and prevention is everything. A simple truth, spoken by a man who knows. Teddi Mellencamp, reality beyond the spotlight. Teddi Mellencamp, known for her role on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Housewives of Beverly Hills star Teddi Mellencamp opening up about her painful journey battling melanoma.
Has lived much of her life under the glare of the spotlight. But away from the scripted drama and red carpets, her real-life story has unfolded with far more gravity. Teddi has been diagnosed with skin cancer multiple times, and each time it's returned, it has reminded her and us that this disease is relentless. By 2023, she had already endured over a dozen surgeries, removing numerous cancerous spots from her body. That September, another biopsy confirmed yet another malignant growth. The diagnosis hit her like a wave of ice. That night, sleep became a stranger. The fear, the unknown, the waiting, it was all too familiar. But instead of retreating, Teddi opened up. She shared her vulnerability with the public, detailing the anxiety, the surgeries, the scars. And more importantly, she shared her resolve. Her transparency turned heads, but not out of shock. It sparked admiration. She refused to sugarcoat the process. Her message was clear and unwavering. Early detection saves lives. Teddi's courage goes beyond posting photos or updates. It's about persistence. It's about showing the emotional cost of battling something that hides in plain sight. Her scars have become symbols, not of weakness, but of strength. She has used her story not for sympathy, but for change. To urge others to act, to not wait, to never ignore what might seem minor. Her fight is ongoing, but so is her voice, loud, honest, and determined to protect others before it's too late. Christie Brinkley spent decades as the image of perfect beauty. A supermodel with a timeless smile and glowing skin, she seemed untouchable, almost ageless. But in March 2023, reality caught up with even the most iconic face. Christie revealed she had undergone surgery to remove a basal cell carcinoma from her face.
Supermodel Christie Brinkley considering herself lucky after she had basal cell carcinoma, the most common type of skin cancer.
What began as a tiny blemish, something most people would overlook, turned out to be a ticking time bomb. She admitted she had waited too long to get it checked, and that delay could have cost her dearly. Despite her humor and poise, Christie didn't downplay the seriousness of her diagnosis. She compared her stitches to a custom Dior dress, a light-hearted quip that couldn't mask the gravity of her message. Do not procrastinate. Her honesty cut through the glamour. No matter how beautiful someone looks on the outside, cancer doesn't care. She stressed the importance of daily sun protection, religiously applying SPF 30 and wearing long sleeves and wide-brimmed hats, even on cloudy days. For someone who once made a living basking in the sun for photo shoots, her transformation is striking. Christie's story is a reminder that skin cancer doesn't scream, it whispers. It hides behind makeup, behind smiles, behind assumptions that you're too healthy, too young, or too careful for something like this to happen. But it can. And for Christie Brinkley, the lesson came not from a doctor's chart, but from a mirror. Her reflection changed, but her resolve only grew stronger. And now she's using that voice to warn others before it's too late. Jimmy Buffett was the voice of escape. With songs that painted paradise and a lifestyle that championed relaxation, he made millions believe in a carefree world of beaches and sunshine. But behind the bright lyrics and laid-back persona, a silent battle was taking place, one he never spoke about publicly. In 2023, the world was stunned to learn that Buffett had passed away after quietly fighting Merkel cell carcinoma.
In breaking news, American singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett has died at the age of 76.
A rare and aggressive form of skin cancer. The news didn't come from a press release or a personal video. It came from his sister, revealing that Jimmy had been battling the illness since 2019. For fans, the realization was jarring. The cancelled shows, the subtle changes, they all made sense in hindsight. But no one expected the vibrant icon of joy to be facing such a cruel disease. That's what cancer does. It doesn't always show itself until it's too late. Jimmy chose to keep his fight private, continuing to bring joy to others while silently enduring his own pain. His death left a silence deeper than any lyric could fill. Yet his legacy endures, not just in music, but in the reminder that life is fragile, even for those who seem larger than life. He taught us that happiness is worth chasing, but so is health. His story urges us to pay attention, to never ignore warning signs, and to remember that even a life full of sunshine can still hide a shadow. Jimmy Buffett lived fully, loved deeply, and left behind more than songs. He left a warning. Melanie Griffith, courage behind the camera. Melanie Griffith has long been a familiar face in Hollywood, graceful, expressive, and unforgettable. But in 2018, she shared a side of herself that went far beyond the glamour. A cancerous spot had appeared on her nose, and the diagnosis was basal cell carcinoma. Instead of hiding the aftermath, she did the unthinkable in an industry obsessed with perfection. She posted a raw, unfiltered selfie. A bandage covered her nose. Her face, usually polished for the public, showed the harsh reality of treatment. It wasn't a cry for attention. It was a warning. Melanie urged her followers not to ignore suspicious spots, no matter how small or painless. She reminded them that sun damage accumulates over time, that beauty can't protect you from what lies beneath your skin. Her voice carried weight not just because of who she is, but because of how honestly she spoke. That scar, barely visible today, represents far more than a health scare. It's a badge of survival and a call to action. Griffith turned her experience into a message, simple, clear, and urgent. Don't wait. Don't assume. Get checked. She stood in front of the world, stripped of pretense, and said, "This can happen to you too." In an industry built on illusion, Melanie chose truth. And that truth may very well have saved lives. Her courage reminds us that no one is immune, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show your weakness. Because in that moment, someone else might find their strength. Diane Keaton, with her signature hats and unmistakable voice, has graced our screens for decades. But behind her timeless charm lies a story that began long before Hollywood ever noticed her. At just 21 years old, Diane was diagnosed with skin cancer. It was a shocking moment for someone so young, and it wouldn't be the last. She would face it again years later, and the disease had already left its mark on her family. Her father, her brother, and even her aunt had all battled the same illness. But like many of her generation, Diane didn't grow up with an understanding of sun protection. Sunscreen wasn't common. She barely knew what SPF meant. She admits that ignoring it was one of the biggest mistakes of her life. It wasn't until her 40s that she truly changed course. She began wearing sun-protective clothing, staying out of the sun during peak hours, and never stepping outside without a layer of sunscreen in her bag. Today, her wardrobe is more than a fashion choice. It's armor. Diane's journey isn't just a personal fight, it's a public message. She has used her story to show others that protecting your skin isn't a suggestion, it's a necessity. Her story proves that it's never too early or too late to take your health seriously. She's not just a Hollywood legend, she's a survivor. And every time she steps into the light, she carries a lesson. Beauty may fade, but awareness lasts a lifetime. Brooke Shields, the price of the perfect tan. Brooke Shields was the face of American beauty for decades, flawless, glowing, and sun-kissed.
Brooke Shields was just 14 years old when she starred in the film The Blue Lagoon. She's been in front of a camera nearly all her life.
But in 2009, her perfect image collided with a harsh truth. What she thought was just a harmless mole turned out to be precancerous. That moment changed everything. For someone who had spent her youth under both studio lights and rooftop tanning sessions in New York, it was a wake-up call that hit close to home. Like many of her generation, Brooke believed that sunburns were the only danger, and only beach days counted. But skin cancer doesn't follow a calendar. It doesn't care if it's cloudy or cold. Damage is cumulative, and years of exposure finally caught up with her. After her diagnosis, Brooke didn't stay quiet. She became a vocal advocate for sun protection, urging others to rethink the tanning culture that once seemed harmless. Her story isn't about vanity, it's about change. She wanted people to understand that the glow we chase today might cost us dearly tomorrow. Shields now speaks openly about checking moles, using SPF daily, and avoiding the sun at peak hours. She admits she can't erase the past damage, but she can protect what's left. And in doing so, she hopes to protect others too. Her voice cuts through the noise, reminding us that even those who seem invincible are vulnerable. Brooke Shields gave up the pursuit of a perfect tan to preserve something far more valuable, her life. And in doing so, she urges us all to look a little closer at our own skin. In 2018, Ariana Madix, known for her role in reality television, made what seemed like a passing comment on social media. She mentioned a small health scare, removing a piece of skin and undergoing a lymph node biopsy. To most, it sounded routine. But behind that simple post was a terrifying truth. Ariana had been diagnosed with melanoma, one of the deadliest forms of skin cancer.
Melanoma is the third most common type of skin cancer. Melanoma is a more aggressive type of skin cancer that has the potential to spread to organs and can be fatal in itself.
For years, doctors had dismissed her concerns, telling her not to worry, but something inside her wouldn't rest. She kept asking questions, kept pushing for answers, and finally, she got one, just in time. The tumor was already at stage 1. It hadn't spread yet, but it was close. Surgery followed, and the lymph nodes were tested. Fortunately, the cancer hadn't moved beyond the initial site. Her persistence saved her life. Ariana could have stayed quiet. She could have moved on. But she didn't. She chose to share her story, not to gain sympathy, but to raise awareness. She now speaks openly about the importance of advocating for yourself, about listening to that quiet voice that says something's wrong. Melanoma doesn't always come with symptoms. It doesn't always show up in obvious places. In her case, it was just a small dark spot that doctors ignored for years. Ariana's journey reminds us all, trust your instincts, question what doesn't feel right, and never stop pushing until you get answers. Because when it comes to your health, silence can be deadly. And speaking up can save everything. Whitney Carson, dancing through the darkness. At just 19, Whitney Carson was dazzling audiences on Dancing with the Stars, full of energy, confidence, and youthful glow. But behind the sequins and spotlights, a frightening diagnosis shook the ground beneath her. She had melanoma. It wasn't just a scare, it was a life-altering reality.
I noticed a little mole on my left foot, and I showed my mom, and she was like, let's just go get checked to make sure. We got a call, and it said that it was positive for melanoma.
And while the cameras captured her flawless performances, Whitney was undergoing surgery in silence, removing a mole and lymph nodes in a desperate attempt to stop the disease from spreading. Not even her producers or dance partners knew what she was going through. She smiled on screen while battling fear behind the scenes. The pressure to appear perfect, unstoppable, unbreakable. It was overwhelming. For a long time, Whitney stayed quiet, afraid that vulnerability would weaken her image. But years later, she chose to speak out, revealing the toll that silence had taken on her. The emotional weight of pretending everything was fine while facing a dangerous illness was crushing. Her story isn't just about survival, it's about reclaiming her truth. Whitney now uses her platform to urge others to trust their gut, to get checked, to speak up when something feels wrong. Her scars may not be visible to the world, but they're part of her story. A story of strength, resilience, and the decision to stop hiding. In the glimmering world of Hollywood and televised perfection, Whitney Carson stood still, lifted her voice, and reminded us all that behind the most graceful moves are sometimes the heaviest burdens. And courage, real courage, often starts with honesty. In 2020, Andy Cohen, host, producer, and television personality, shared a moment that could have ended in tragedy but didn't, thanks to a friend who spoke up. It started with a small dark spot on his lip, something he had ignored for far too long. He thought it was nothing, just a mark, maybe a cold sore or a sunburn. But his longtime friend, Kelly Ripa, noticed it and didn't stay silent. She looked at him and said, "That looks like skin cancer."
You said you have a black dot on your lip. I don't think that's something good.
Well, I had never seen it before, and you know, I pay attention.
Her words were firm, serious, and just what he needed to hear. Cohen listened, and it saved his life. Doctors confirmed it was melanoma. The diagnosis came with shock, fear, and regret. He had loved tanning, embraced that sun-kissed look for years. But now that pursuit of glow had come at a dangerous price. After surgery, Andy didn't hide from the cameras. He opened up publicly, candidly and honestly about what he'd been through. He urged others to drop the tanning habits, to respect their skin, and most importantly, to never ignore a small change on their body. His experience was a sharp wake-up call, not just for him, but for everyone watching. It taught a powerful lesson. Sometimes it takes one person, one comment, one moment of concern to change everything. Andy Cohen could have brushed it off, but he didn't. And now his story stands as a reminder that listening to the people who care about you isn't just wise, it can be life-saving. Kevin Jonas, the unexpected diagnosis. In June 2024, Kevin Jonas shared something deeply personal with the world. Not through a press conference, but in a simple, calm video on social media. He pointed to a small spot on his forehead and said the words no one expected. "It's skin cancer." At just 37, the pop star and father revealed he had been diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and it hit home for millions of fans who had grown up watching him. The spot looked harmless, just a tiny blemish, nothing out of the ordinary, but early detection made all the difference. Kevin underwent surgery to remove the cancer, and thankfully it hadn't spread. What stood out most wasn't the diagnosis, it was his response. He didn't hide it, he didn't sugarcoat it. He used his platform to send a powerful message. Pay attention to your skin. Don't wait, don't assume, and most of all, don't be embarrassed to take care of yourself. Kevin's honesty cut through the noise of celebrity life. He reminded us that no matter how famous or busy you are, your health has to come first. His moment of vulnerability became a mirror for many who had ignored similar signs. And in that quiet, serious video, Kevin Jonas turned a frightening experience into a message of strength and prevention. Because when it comes to skin cancer, early action isn't just smart, it's life-saving. His story is proof that courage sometimes looks like simply telling the truth. On March 20th, 2025, fitness icon Richard Simmons broke years of silence with a confession that was both raw and gut-wrenching. Beneath his right eye, he had discovered a strange lump, small, unassuming, but something felt wrong. Trusting his instincts, he visited a dermatologist. The diagnosis was basal cell carcinoma, and the next steps were nothing short of brutal.
Basal cell carcinoma is a skin cancer that develops in the basal cells, which are responsible for producing new skin cells once old ones die.
Simmons didn't sugarcoat the treatment. He described it with painful clarity, how, without anesthesia, doctors used a small burning instrument to destroy the cancer cells. The searing pain, he said, was unlike anything he'd ever felt. And worse, the first round didn't work. Some cancer cells remained. He had to return for a second round of treatment. Most people would have kept such an ordeal private, but not Richard. He shared the full truth with the world, not for pity, but for purpose. He wanted people to understand just how vicious and sneaky skin cancer can be. It doesn't always come with warning signs. It doesn't always look serious. But left untreated, it grows, it spreads, and it doesn't stop. Richard's courage wasn't just in facing the pain. It was in telling the world about it. Unfiltered, honest, and with all the emotion that made him beloved in the first place. He ended his story with 3 simple, haunting words. To be continued. A reminder that his fight isn't over, and neither is the fight for awareness. In his most vulnerable moment, Richard Simmons showed us the true meaning of strength. Facing pain head-on and using it to protect others. Fame has a way of masking pain. The bright lights, flawless makeup, red carpet smiles, they don't reveal the scars beneath. But the stories you've just heard prove one thing without a doubt. Cancer doesn't care who you are. It doesn't pause for awards, fans, or fortune. It moves quietly, slowly, and sometimes without warning. These celebrities, icons, legends, role models, have faced what many of us fear most. Some caught it in time, others ignored it too long. A few didn't live to share their stories, yet in their moments of fear, vulnerability, and recovery, they chose to speak out. And in doing so, they gave us more than just their fame. They gave us a lesson: check your skin, trust your instincts, and never ignore what feels wrong. It's easy to think, it won't happen to me. But cancer doesn't come with a schedule. It doesn't announce its arrival. Sometimes it's just a small bump, a dark spot, a faded scar that refuses to go away. And sometimes catching it early is the difference between survival and silence. So ask yourself, when was the last time you looked closely? When was the last time you took your health seriously? These stories weren't shared for drama. They were shared to save lives, maybe yours. Don't let the spotlight blind you to what matters most: your health, your life, your future. Because behind every perfect photo is a human being. And behind every warning is a chance to make a better choice, while there's still time. These were more than just actors. They were icons, storytellers, dreamers, each of them living legends who gave us unforgettable moments on screen. But behind their public lives were private battles, many of them silent, some still ongoing, and others sadly brought to a close. Cancer doesn't choose its victims based on fame or fortune. It reaches into every corner of life, even the brightest ones. The stories you've just heard are not meant to scare, they're meant to awaken. To remind us that health is fragile, time is precious, and awareness can be the first step towards survival. If even the most powerful and admired stars can face such devastating diagnoses, it's proof that none of us are invincible. So don't wait. Check in with yourself, your health, your loved ones. Catch the warning signs before they become final chapters. And most importantly, remember them, not just for the roles they played, but for the battles they fought. Because behind every spotlight is a human story worth listening to, and a life worth fighting for.